Welcome back, guys. In this discussion, we're going to talk about a luxury car from Hyundai known as the Grandeur. Now, this is a big, full-size sedan, but it has unique styling and a ton of standard equipment. And if Hyundai were to offer this car for sale in the United States, I think it would fit in perfectly with the Genesis luxury brand. So this discussion is going to be a what-if scenario. What if Hyundai brought this car over to North American shores? One thing I can say, if they did offer this car for the North American market, it would definitely need to wear a luxury badge if they want it to be taken seriously. You know, Hyundai started out offering luxury cars before they created the Genesis brand. I believe in 2009, they offered the Genesis. They had the Azera on sale during the time too, but this new Genesis was actually their first serious attempt at a premium sedan with rear-wheel drive and an optional 8-cylinder engine. And they did offer other luxury cars under the Hyundai badge, but those ultimately gave way to the Genesis offerings once Genesis became an official brand. So enough of that. Without further ado, let's go ahead and discuss the Grandeur. So this new 7th generation was released in South Korea in November of 2022. And this was 6 years after the 6th generation Grandeur. So before I start talking about this new one, let me give you a rundown of the prior generations. Overall, there have been 7 generations of the Hyundai Grandeur. Here's the initial generation, and this is the second. This one is the 3rd generation, and you might be familiar with this one since it was sold here in the United States as the XG300 and later on the XG350. Okay, so here's a look at the 4th generation. You should be familiar with this one too. It was also sold here as the Azera, replacing the XG350 and serving as the flagship sedan. Now, the one you see on the screen is the 5th generation Grandeur. Or if you live in the States, you would know this as the 2nd generation Azera. And this was the last Azera generation we would get in North America. Okay, so this one is the 6th generation. And this is the facelifted version of that generation, which I always thought looked kind of strange, but oh well. And then of course we have here the 7th and current generation, which in my opinion is one of the better looking generations. And you know, I do like the 2nd generation. When this one came out, it became a status symbol in Korea. This car was primarily being used by politicians and wealthy business executives. I also like the design of the 4th generation. But this new generation really took this car into something more serious. If they decided to bring the Grandeur back to North America, they could sell this as a Genesis and no one would bat an eye. So compared to the previous model, the overall length is 198.2 inches, which is 1.8 inches longer, and the wheelbase and rear overhang have been increased by ½ an inch. The exterior features daytime running lights, and they are similar to what we got here on the refreshed Sonata. So the daytime running lights are a full-width horizontal layout with integrated turn signals. So yeah, this is one of the few sedans that has the divorced headlights that we see on almost every crossover nowadays. I can only think of a handful of sedans that actually have this setup. The Sonata being one, of course, and the Ford Mondeo being the other. Most sedans that have this kind of light setup are not even sold here in the United States to begin with. The interior has a wraparound structure with ambient lighting and a pattern on the door trim designed with a Korean look and feel. It's very similar to what can be found on the door of a Lexus LS. So if you decided to purchase this car, you will of course be getting a large infotainment system, 2 built-in cameras, 2 digital keys, an interior fingerprint authentication system, reclining rear seats if you want to be chauffeured around, and electric door curtains. Because of course this just wouldn't be a luxury car without power door curtains. And there is also a hybrid model. The hybrid model is equipped with an e-motion drive that uses a drive motor to improve driving performance. Okay, so let's talk engines. You can get a 4-banger in this car as the base engine, and of course we're talking the Korean market. And this 4-banger is a 2.5 liter that produces 195 horsepower. The V6 was designed for front-wheel drive applications. I know a lot of people will look at this car and assume it's probably rear-wheel drive, just based on appearance, but it's not. It's a front-wheel drive sedan. So the 3.5 V6 is good for 296 horsepower, and just like the 4-cylinder, it is paired to an 8-speed automatic. There is also a hybrid system like I mentioned earlier, and another V6 application which produces 237 horsepower. If Hyundai decides to bring this car to North America, I highly doubt the 4-cylinder engine would make the cut. More than likely, it would come standard with the 296 horsepower V6 paired to the 8-speed automatic. But anyway, I think they did good, or rather great, on the design of this new Grandeur. It might be polarizing to some, but it's polarizing in a good way. It doesn't look like anything else on the road other than the Sonata, of course. And if you saw one of these on the road, it would definitely turn heads. With just a few minor cosmetic tweaks, it could fit right in with the design language of the existing Genesis lineup. Perhaps they could take some inspiration from the Genesis Coupe concept and carefully craft it into the design of the Grandeur. Notice I said carefully. As you guys know, I'm not generally a fan of mid-cycle refreshes, because usually they looked forced and grafted on, but it seems as though Genesis designers are pretty good at putting things together. For example, look at the mid-cycle refreshed first generation G90. It didn't look forced and it didn't look grafted on from another vehicle. It kind of just blended right in and just flowed together with the rest of the car. So I feel as though if they brought back the Grandeur, they could kind of do the same thing here. Refresh the front end and maybe refresh the rear end too, to put it more in line with the Genesis brand. And it would fit right in, and they'll have another luxury car here to sell. If this car was sold as a Genesis, perhaps it could be positioned between the G80 and the G90, maybe called the G85. And I actually had a commenter that mentioned the same thing. Put it in between the mid-size sedan and their full-size sedan and call it the G85, which the Grandeur is already a full-size sedan. So if people want something a little bigger and more cushy than the G80, but didn't necessarily want the G90, they could get the G85. The G80 and the G90 and the G70 also, all rear-wheel drive. You know, so maybe they just want a big, cushy front-wheel drive luxury car, and the G85 could fill that role. Of course, this is just a what-if scenario, but I think it's a pretty good what-if scenario because they could bring this car back, and I don't think anyone would be interested in this car if it was sold as a Hyundai. But if they tweaked it, you know, because Genesis, they've been, as far as their designs, they've been knocking it out of the park with their designs. If they did this car right, they could have a hit on their hands. Offer the V6, offer all the luxury items, and yeah, it could fit right in with the Genesis brand because they look great. Okay, Genesis, like I said, their designs are outstanding so far. So let me know what you guys think. Do you like the Grandeur? Do you like the current Genesis lineup? What would you do if you was in charge? What would you do to the Genesis lineup? What changes would you make? Alright guys, so that's it for this discussion. Let me know what you think, and I'll catch you on the next one.